$1.5 billion. That is the amount of debt crushing one of the richest sports franchises in the world. A franchise that has been around since the 19th century and has become one of the 4 most valuable sports teams ever. More valuable than the Golden State Warriors, New England Patriots, or any sports franchise in Los Angeles. If you've been living under a rock or from America, you probably haven't heard about what's happening to football's most iconic team. Not the Dallas Cowboys, which is the most valuable sports franchise in the world, despite not winning for decades. I'm talking about European football, and this franchise actually wins championships. They won 3 trophies in 2015 and had 3 of the best players in the sport, including arguably the greatest footballer of all time. But because of $1.5 billion, this franchise that's worth more than the Lakers may go bankrupt and cease to exist. We're talking about FC Barcelona, the franchise that had Messi, Suarez, Neymar, all the fans and money in the world, and still somehow managed to lose all of it. But the ultimate question is how? How did Barcelona ruin their $5 billion franchise? And how can they save it from the brink of death? But first, we have to go back. There are 3 reasons Barcelona crashed financially. The first is the team's behind-the-scenes management. At the peak of their power, everyone was hooked on Barcelona. Fans would fly to Spain just to watch them. Top players wanted to wear the red, blue, and maroon. And most importantly, all the top brands wanted to sponsor the out of them. But after Pep Guardiola left, Barcelona hasn't really been the same. Outside of the 2015 treble, Barcelona has almost become a non-entity on the European stage. And when the Euro success dried up, so did the sponsorships they got used to, which means less money to pay promised wages on the most expensive payroll in all of sports. Literally no franchise spends more on players than Barcelona. The second reason is how poorly they've performed in the transfer business. Despite owing a lot of money, Barcelona still spends big on the transfer market. While signings like Pedri have been great value for the money, there are signings like Coutinho, Antoine Griezmann, and Malcolm who were not only huge busts, but cost Barcelona so much that the club wasn't even able to make a profit off of transferring those players. $400 million of the club's debt alone are attributed to these transfer mistakes. And the sad part is, most of these transfers were made to keep Messi happy, who left the club in 2021 anyway. And finally, the third reason, the nail to the coffin, a global pandemic. Everyone in sports was losing money from all directions during the height of COVID, but Barcelona got it the worst. Before COVID, 63% of Barcelona revenue was dedicated to player wages, which means the $200 million loss in revenue hit them harder than any other franchise. Fast forward to summer 2022, all the losing and overspending going into the worst pandemic in 100 years put Barcelona in the hot seat. So the question now is, what's next for Barcelona? Well, the club's president has put a 5-year plan to keep the club afloat, including a huge sponsorship deal with Spotify, and more importantly, restructuring the club's business model to both chip at the club's debt problem and contend in Europe. Let's hope for the sake of soccer, we see Barcelona pull this 5-year plan off.